The room froze the moment she said it. Her voice didn't tremble, her eyes didn't dart, and her hands didn't shake. Instead, she stood tall, shoulders back, chin up, as if she had been preparing her whole life for this exact moment. And every single person in that lavish, chandelier-lit hall turned toward her with the same stunned expression. Because no one expected the millionaire's wife to defend the man who had spent years trying to stay invisible. No one expected her to choose him. No one expected her to say, loudly, boldly, "Tell him I'm your wife." And that sentence, it changed everything. The beginning, the man who blended into SHADOWS. RM had worked for the Khatri Group for 8 years. Most people didn't even know his name. He was the kind of man who arrived early, stayed late, and walked through corporate hallways like he was apologizing for taking up space. He avoided conflict, avoided attention, avoided anything that drew eyes toward him. If there was a group conversation, RM stood behind the tallest person in the room. If there was praise being given, he stepped out before anyone remembered to include him. He wasn't weak, just tired. Life had taught him to stay quiet. Taught him that being unnoticed was safer than being seen. He had grown up in a small town where dreams were luxuries and expectations were chains. His father believed emotions were burdens, and his mother worked herself into silence. RM grew up thinking life was something you endure, not something you build. The only person who ever challenged that belief was the one woman he never thought he'd fall for. The millionaire's wife. Myra Khatri. Wife of Amir Khatri, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. She was known for her elegance, grace, intelligence, and the sadness she masked behind her perfect smile. Rumors swirled around her like perfume. Some said she was lonely. Some said she was trapped in a loveless marriage. Some whispered that she was the real backbone of her husband's empire. But only RM ever saw the truth. Because Myra was the only person who stopped to talk to him. Really talk. She noticed when he skipped lunch. She remembered his mother's surgery date without writing it down. She laughed at his jokes even when he mumbled them. She listened to him with the kind of attention that made him feel like he mattered. She made the invisible man visible. And she did it without ever crossing a line. Until the day the line crossed them. When the millionaire returned. Amir Khatri traveled constantly. Deals, investors, global chains. His world never stopped spinning. He returned only for important events. And today was one of them. His annual charity gala, where the elite of the elite gathered to impress, pretend, gossip, and compete. RM was assigned as Myra's assistant for the evening. She had requested him personally. His job was simple. Stay nearby but not too near. Fade into the background, but be ready when needed. But nothing about that night went according to plan. Especially not when Amir, who had always ignored RM like he was furniture, suddenly noticed him. Really noticed him. The moment everything changed. It started innocently. Amir approached Myra with a cold stiffness that made everyone around uncomfortable. They looked like strangers standing too close. "Where is your assistant?" he asked sharply. Myra turned, glanced at RM, and smiled with soft familiarity. "Right here." That smile, warm, natural, almost tender, did not go unnoticed by her husband. Amir's eyes narrowed. He took a single step toward RM. A step meant to intimidate. A step that communicated a warning long before he spoke. "Who are you to her?" Amir demanded, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. RM froze. His heart pounded. This wasn't a question, this was a trap. Anything he said could be twisted. Anything he explained could be misunderstood. But before he could even open his mouth, Myra stepped forward. Her voice carried through the hall like a blade, cutting the tension. "Tell him I'm your wife." The entire room gasped. Amir's face drained of color. Guests exchanged stunned looks. The music seemed to stop mid-note. But Myra wasn't done. She walked toward Aram, slow, steady, fearless, and took his trembling hand in hers. Then she turned back to her husband. "He deserves your respect," she said. "Something you have never given anyone." The truth behind her words. Myra didn't mean she was literally Aram's wife. Her words were symbolic, an act of rebellion, a declaration of loyalty to someone who treated her like a human being when her own husband treated her like a trophy. For years, Myra had lived under strict rules. Appear perfect. Stand beside him. Don't speak unless spoken to. Smile even if it hurts. And Aram was the only person who talked to her like she wasn't trapped behind glass. She wasn't claiming to belong to Aram. She was claiming her right to choose kindness over power, humanity over pride, respect over fear. Her sentence was a strike at her husband's arrogance. A reminder that titles meant nothing, not when your character was empty. The confrontation. Amir clenched his fists. "So this is what you've become, defending a nobody, embarrassing me in front of everyone." Myra didn't flinch. "A nobody," she repeated. "Aram has shown me more decency in a year than you have in our entire marriage." Aram tried to step back. He didn't want a war. He didn't want to be the reason a marriage shattered. "Myra, it's okay," he whispered. But she stopped him with a gentle touch on his arm. "No, it's not okay, not anymore." Her voice trembled with years of buried pain. "Amir, you never saw me. You never heard me. You never cared about anything except your image. And now you're angry because someone else did what you refused to do. Acknowledge my existence." The guests stared in awe. No one dared move. Then Amir said the one thing that revealed who he truly was. "You think anyone will believe you? I built your life. Without me, you are nothing." A hush swept through the hall. Because that's when Myra delivered the line that broke her chains forever. "You didn't build my life. You only built my cage." The turning point. Security stepped forward as tensions grew. But something unexpected happened. The board members, investors, and even longtime associates began whispering. Not about Myra's words. Not about Aram's presence. But about Amir's cruelty. For years, people had seen glimpses. Moments. Signs. But Myra had never spoken. Tonight she finally did. A senior board member approached. "Myra, if you want to give an official statement, we will support you." Amir looked around, shocked. "You're taking their side over mine." "No," the board member replied. "We're taking the side of the truth." Amir stormed out, leaving behind an empire now questioning him, and a woman finally free. The aftermath, healing and honesty. The next days were a whirlwind. Lawyers, interviews, statements. But through it all, Myra and Aram remained honest. There was no affair. No romance. Only respect, trust, and a friendship that gave her the courage to speak. Aram tried to distance himself, afraid people would blame him. But Myra stopped him. "You didn't break my marriage," she said softly. "You helped me realize I deserved better." Her words became the beginning of her own journey toward independence, self-worth, and healing. And Aram, he finally believed he mattered. The inspiring message. Some relationships are not about romance. Some are about awakening. Some people enter your life not to love you romantically, but to remind you of your value when you've forgotten it. Aram didn't save Myra. Myra saved herself. He just lit the first candle in a dark room she had been trapped in for years. And sometimes, that's enough to change an entire life.